Etvarasning Dushmattav Dusuktav Dujavastav Men Pagati Mani Time Ko Time Ka Time Just Time Bun Budeste Sanuna Manashni Gavashni Kunashni Tanirvani Getiminvani Apevaks Pashivan Tajikavasni Pavaditom Not orimus thou tayudigrem gemenio shetyavarastam yatvastam pasustamim stomia shem shimbo vistamasti ustasti ustamai yaha deshai vistaya shem shimbo vistamasti ustasti ustamai deshai vistaya shem Ashim vahu vistamasti ustasti ustamai deshai vistaya shem Pavarane Mati Asnodatu Stage Videvo Takesho Havanya Shone Shadatvayas Naicha Maicha Snotrecha Vasusticha Savangi Vistaicha Shone Shadatvayas Naicha Maicha Snotrecha Vasusticha Horimazdao Revato Pengoto Amishanam Spendanam Ashanam Paishanam Ugrom Padakshanam Pavashanam Namadadisnam Pavashanam Snotrayas Naicham Maicha Snotraycha Vasustaicha Yeta Hum Vedyo Zota Pramimrote Tarasu Sasadi Racha Pasvit Komrutam Ore Mazdam Reventen Kalning Nismede Hamesha Pinta Ukshoto Long Vismede Gata Pyo Spenta Pyo Rakshatra Pyo Shanim Smede Onimidim Gatam Shonim Shritum Smede Pushtavidim Gatam Shonim Shiratum Smede Spentiminium Gatam Shonim Shiratum Smede Vokshatra Gatam Shonim Shiratum Smede Vishtu is Gatam Shonim Shiratum Smede Ashim Vahum Vestamasti Ustasti Ustamaya Deshai Mistaya Shem Begatani Kashim Yata Ahum Vedyo Tarato Ashati Nacha Mangeyo Dastam Hingo Shotrinam Mungyoshmasai Shatrim Cha Orai Ayem Dari Gopyo Darat Vastarim Yeva Vedyo Tadato Ashachi Dacha Vangeyo Satam Ringo Shortinam Vangyushmasai Shatrim Shah Orai Ayem Dari Gopyo Darat Vastarim Ashim Bohu Vestamasti Ustasti Ustamai Yahadishai Vestaya Shem. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Welcome to all of you for the series of lectures that the trustees have decided to hold in the memory of my father, who was the late president of our Delhi Parsi Anjuman for over 25 years. In my house, when he was there, you could actually set a clock by the way his discipline and punctuality worked. So getting up, having breakfast, leaving for work, coming back home, evening, tea, later on evening, whiskey, dinner, everything was pretty much, every day happened on time. And some old timers here would remember trustee meetings, etc. would start bang on time, finish by a certain time. So I'm very happy to hear, we see that we all start also today on time, exactly at 12 o'clock noon, as it was part of our program. I was unfortunate not to have seen any of my grandparents, and today when we were coming here in the car and we had our kids in the car with us, and we realized that even some of them none of them saw my dad, right, because he passed away over 30 years ago when neither me or my brother was married at that time. And today I think in this lecture, when they are sitting here, they will understand something about what he was. The topic that we have chosen for the lecture today, which our dear friend Justice Nariman will speak on, is Parsi law applicable to interfaith marriages. I've been married to a non-Parsi now for over 25 years. I was once on your show, I don't know if you remember, you had a show many years ago on television, right? And you questioned a lot about, I mean, you questioned me specifically a lot about interfaith marriage at that time. And, you know, today, when we see our community, we see that a large number of our community today is a mixed marriage couple, you know. I mean, be it Delhi, be it, you know, even Bombay, you know, Delhi we have a large number, but even in cities like Bombay and other places, we see that there's a lot of Parsis marrying outside. And today's talk, I think, would be very, very, you know, enlightening for all of us to understand the law as to how does it apply to marriages of Parsis with non-Parsis. I won't take any more further time. I'll ask Mr. Kapadia to come up and give his welcome address.
Syawars Nargolwala was arguably one of the most eminent presidents that this Anjuman has seen. He laid the very foundations for which we are all very grateful for. If you look at the rule book, the way it has been drafted very carefully with the precise nature of an ICS officer. We are delighted on two counts today. First, that Rohinton has agreed to deliver the first Syawars Nargolwala Memorial Lecture. Secondly, by the presence of Honorable Minister for HR and Education to the Government of India, Madam, you and your family are very heartily welcome. It was in 1948 that two eminent Parsi Zoroastrians wrote two independent reports on the state of affairs of the Parsi community then. Even at that time, the decline in population was a matter of grave concern. Both made proposals of how to stem the rot. Unfortunately, not much has been done since then. 40 years later, Rati, my wife, and I and our children took a drive through the cities of North India, and the sadness which tinged my heart then still lingers. Property after property was lying desolate, unattended, no proper fencing, no proper wall, and that unfortunately is a state of affairs that the community has to tackle. We talk of Pasipano and Dokmanishi. Not very far from the Abu Road railway junction, there is what is left of a Dokma. It's used as a trespass ground, people walk over it, around it, there's a marketplace. There are unconfirmed reports that an Agyari in Kolkata is used as a marketplace for selling electrical goods. Adil referred to mixed marriages. Every second marriage in the community is outside the community. What do we do? Do we adapt as we did when we first came to India, or definitely proceed towards a state which is terminal in its nature? We are therefore eager now to listen to Rohinton's talk, which I hope will offer some solutions to the problem being faced by the community today.
They promised to consult their colleagues and revert. At a subsequent meeting, there was a unanimous request that he become the president, which he unhesitatingly accepted. The group assured him full cooperation and a free hand in the management of the affairs of the Anjuman. Knowing him, he would not have had it any other way. Thus began a long and glorious innings of over 25 years as president, during which time he left behind a stamp of strong and purposeful leadership. Though his style was sometimes blunt, he was not lacking in flexibility. Under his stewardship, the Anjuman grew tremendously, and even today, although nearly 30 years have passed since his demise in a car accident, the legacy he left behind is strongly visible. Through his tireless efforts, he got the Kathak family to donate the seed corpus to build our Darya Mahal in Delhi. He planned the structure and was there every single day to ensure its timely completion. The noteworthy stance he took on 3 religious issues showed his foresight, allowing non-Parsi spouses as members of the DPA, permitting non-Parsis to attend the death ceremony of a Parsi, accepting children of interfaith marriages, and recognizing their Navjot ceremony as long as one parent was a Parsi. These were path-taking initiatives undertaken by him by forging consensus, and this has ensured the cosmopolitan nature of the Delhi Parsi Anjuman. He was a founder of the Federation of Parsi Zoroastrian Anjumans of India and helped build the organization. During his time, it reached its zenith. Just before he passed away, he managed to get quite a large piece of land approved behind our current Auranga, which I think today is going to be very useful for all of us. On his 100th birth centenary, we remember him fondly with a lot of respect, love and affection. Now over to Justice Harrison.
Mr. President, my dear friend Adil, my beloved parents, ladies and gentlemen. Shavaksha Nargolwala was indeed an institution. He was very dear to me and became dear to me by a somewhat curious incident. This took place ages ago when I was a student. He had some minor altercation with one of our community members and agreed with that member, look at his humility, that as president, we should go to some community elder where the other gentleman could ventilate his grievance. The community elder was none other than my father, who invited both of them for tea. They both came for tea. The other gentleman started off and finished in about 5 minutes. Shavaksha demolished him point for point within about 3 minutes flat, after which we had tea, after which we got into Western classical music, of which both Shavaksha and I are great aficionados. Shavaksha promised me that the very next day, he would send out of his mammoth record collection, at that time it was some 2,000 or 3,000 records, a set of the entire Heifetz recordings, including the early acoustic recordings, from 1917 to 1955, which he promptly did the next day, after which we became the best of friends. We continued that great friendship till his untimely death in 1986. It was really untimely because he really stewarded this organization for 25 years, and we missed his leadership in the years which were without him. The topic for today is something which would have been very close to Shavaksha's heart. Shavaksha was a man of action. And among the other epithets that were applied to him were self-made and progressive. The latter epithet is what this whole talk is going to be about. First and foremost, it is important for us to ask ourselves a few questions. Who is a Parsi? Who is a Zoroastrian? Which community, the Indian community, to which community do we belong? Now, these questions have been asked through the ages. And it is first important to get rid of a few cobwebs. We have been told and repeatedly told as children that one of the promises that was made on our landing here to Jadi Radha was that we would not convert. Not only is this not correct, it would be absurd, because as a refugee community, that's not something that is high up on the agenda. In fact, the 5 things that have been recorded through the ages by a priest called Darab Sanjana in 1599 AD, that is about 8 centuries after it actually happened, tells us very clearly that our promises were as follows: that we would marry after sunset, which was the local custom of the day, of that particular Yadav ruler, that we would adopt the Gujarati language, that our women would wear the sari, that we would not bear arms, we would not be violent, and that we would look after ourselves, that we would till the soil ourselves. Now, apart from this tradition, there is yet another tradition, which has also come down through the ages, recorded sometime in the 18th or 19th centuries in Gujarat. That is the tradition of the 16 Sanskrit shlokas that were learned by heart by our chief priest and repeated to the Brahmin priests on the shores of this great country to which we came sometime in the 8th century AD. Now, obviously, if we had been able to communicate through these 16 Sanskrit shlokas, none of which, by the way, again speak of conversion, except some interpolation which was apparently put into the 11th shloka long after. The important point to be gleaned from this again is that, unfortunately for us, even our beautiful milk in the cup story does not seem to have come down through any tradition. In fact, it would be directly contrary to the tradition which said that we were able to communicate, because milk in the cup would necessarily be postulated on the fact that we could not communicate. That if milk was brought in a cup, signifying that the entire milk, the cup was full, and that this land didn't have any place for us. And our chief priest, using his present of mind, apparently put some sugar in it. Unfortunately, again, does not bear scrutiny from any of the oral traditions. So the first cobwebs out of the way are that in fact we had made a pledge when we landed here that we will not convert. No such thing. Second, and more importantly, what does the Zoroastrian religion itself say on this? Now, all of you probably know that the prophet existed at a time way before at least 600 BC. When exactly he existed, we don't know. But we know that he existed long before, at least, let us say, 1000 BC. And long before most of the Jewish prophets, maybe at the time of Moses, maybe before. But what we do know is that when he preached the religion, not only did he expressly state that it was a universal religion for the whole of mankind, and for this purpose, he divided mankind into two parts: those who live by the path of truth and those who don't. So all that was important to his central message was that everybody should join him in making this world a better place, a happier place for everybody else to exist in. And with this in mind, he went about the length and breadth, at least of Persia as it stood then, spreading the word, which was spread in some 238 hymns, which fortunately for us have come down to us. Apart from the fact that his message was universal, we also happen to know that a Turanian, a man called Frayana, who's referred to in Yasnaha 46.12, was also somebody who came over to the faith. Now, whatever Frayana was, he was obviously not Iranian, he was Turanian. So there is no problem about Zoroaster's time. There's not much of a problem about the succeeding generations either. As you all know, in recorded history, there have been three massive Persian empires: the Achaemenian, the Parthian, and then finally the Sasanian. And it was taken for granted that anybody who wished to come into the faith was most welcome. In fact, the excesses of one of the Sasanian emperors, Yazdegerd II, in forcibly converting people in Armenia, which was contrary to the dogma of the religion, led unfortunately to a big backlash and Nestorian Christianity being established in that state. But what is important to realize is that throughout our history, and this has been documented and proved and stated and restated in book after book, is that it is clear that Zoroastrianism as a religion is a proselytizing religion. So point number one, it is a religion which, like the other great proselytizing faiths, believes in conversion. This is one very important fact that you must all know. Second, the question then was, what was the customary law in India? Because we've been in India now for 1300 years. Has anybody been converted on Indian soil? And if so, what was the reaction of the community? Now, this brings us directly to the Parsi law on the subject, which is really contained in two judgments. One is a judgment of 1909, consisting of a Parsi judge and an English judge of a division bench of the Bombay High Court. And another is of the year 1925, which arose from the birthplace of my father, Rangoon, which went all the way up to our Privy Council, which in those days was the equivalent of the Supreme Court of India. And it is these two judgments which I now intend to speak about in some detail, so that we first know what our law is, and after knowing what our law is, we must also see whether it is possible in this day and age to work within the law insofar as mixed marriages are concerned. Now, first, the Bombay judgment. The Bombay judgment arose out of the conversion of a French lady